He's done a good job. Or if Bibi wasn't around, especially the combination, Israel would not exist today. We wouldn't have hit him with the B-2 bombers. You know, they were going to have a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks. Had I not hit them with a nuclear, within 2 to 4 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon. And once they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it.
Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All their seeds are open-pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out TrueLeafMarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Products you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients. Essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Don't make me get mad. I don't want you to get sad. We used all the time we had. This is gonna be bad, so bad. And tomb. I can go nuclear. You can go nuclear. Let's go, let's all go nuclear. World's gone nuclear. Don't make me go nuclear. The future is so circular, but it's unclear. It's right here, it's right near. It might go nuclear. Where we go from here, nuclear. Maybe there is nothing to fear, it's just nuclear. Boom, this is our tomb. I can go nuclear. You can go nuclear. World's gone nuclear. Boom, this is our tomb. I can go nuclear, you can go nuclear. Let's go, let's all go nuclear. You can go nuclear. Let's go, we all go nuclear. World's gone nuclear. I can go nuclear. Boom, this is our tomb. I can go nuclear. You can go nuclear. Let's go, let's all go nuclear. World's gone nuclear.
That's dirty.
Appreciate the tune. So relevant for the time we live in. Let's all go nuclear. Welcome to the Civilization Cycle podcast, live radio show every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight, broadcasting, multitasking, and multi-broadcasting, if I could speak correctly. Where are we at tonight, Rance? We're up on Telegram, we're up on X, YouTube, and Rumble. Please join us on one of those venues, whichever one you like. Please support the channel with some of our sponsors. Check out this evening. This week, as we wake up into the hologram, calories are going to be the new way that food is going to be sold. You're no longer going to buy a hamburger as a single unit. You're going to be buying food by the calorie as we move forward, the digitization, tokenization. They've moved on it already for houses and land. And at the same time, I've just got some news headlines here for you. The U.S. House of Representatives was vote on banning Congress from insider trading. And 197 Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, said, no, we vote against that. So if you or I were caught insider trading on Wall Street, we go to prison. Them, they just get rich. You see the divide, and everybody's starting to notice the divide. Have you seen it? I guess the mass awakening continues week by week. It's something about that now. It's so all-encompassing, so all in your face that everybody is literally waking up at the exact same time. Got the wasn't there Amazon data center in Bahrain destroyed, but here's the thing. They took down the entire data center by hitting the center point and only damaging probably a tenth of the data center, ruined the entire thing. Again, that wasn't even on Google Maps that he airbrushed and erased that out. But But some knew that the data center was there, and I'd seen this a couple months ago that, oh, that was in danger. That's the one that was in charge of all assessment of the Middle East theater, targeting which ships were where, all troop movements, etc. That one just got taken out. So the one that wasn't there just got supposedly taken out, but they have the images of it. I sent one over to Ransom earlier. Take a look at that. I voted for ham and eggs, and I believed the banks, is what the old placards were in the 1930s during the Great Depression. It seems that we're heading that way again. Like everywhere I look across the internet space, all I do is see people complaining about data center rollout. Power's getting more expensive. We've got the roll, and now they have another emergency warning for blackouts and rolling blackouts in the, I guess, it wasn't PJM, it was another power provider, central US, because the data centers were taking so much that when they cut off the data centers, it sent surges through the entire system. So now they're trying to bring in nuclear power plants in every single city, mini nuclear hydro or nuclear reactors. I guess they're pebble bed nuclear reactors. They're trying to put them out amongst every city where there's a data center to try to provide more power, because they realize, and we've all woken up, that water and power. And I would say something about that too, just to start the program here. The rollout of AI is at a war footing. Like, we just don't get this much done in America all at one time with everybody in complete unison and agreement. We got to go, we got to go, we got to do it. Unless you're in a war footing. You know, you go back in World War, say, II, shortly after Pearl Harbor, 100% of the people were on 100% of the programs 100% of the time, and things got done. This AI data center rollout is the same, but I'm going to ask tonight with everybody with an open mind, is this a cover story for something that was and uses way more water and way more power than a data center should? I'm looking at this, what's underground? And is it a cover for an underground city of 40,000 people? How much water would they use in a day versus what, they'd say, a data center would use? Because you're looking at 200 million gallons of water being used by these data centers. So how much would that be for a city of, say, 30 or 40,000 people underground? Would the approximate usage of water and electric be about equal? That's the question. Now, it gives them full reasons to bring in. They got all the communication hubs right there in each data center. Now, if they bring in their own power under the guise of the American people are angry, we got to have our own power production. We got to have our own localized nuclear power just for the data center. Maybe there's something that runs underground to an underground city there. And we'd seen these maps from Rand Corporation starting way back in the 1970s. Air Force was on this. They had all these underground maglev train schematics. And then in the 1980s and 90s, they came out with a huge bunch more maps where the actual military bases were the entry points down into the underground system that connected, because of continuity of government. I get it. You're going to want to be able to move somebody from Washington, D.C. out to L.A. if you can, or move them out to Colorado underground so they never, light speed, you know. Their own dedicated rail lines that are moving at, maglev train speed with zero possibility of interruption, hundreds if not thousands of feet underground. That's a wise move, in my opinion, for a government to do that. So now it comes out, and are we at that point now where whatever was so dangerous for the continuity of our civilization has gone live now? And it's just a year, months away that we now are at operational capacity for whatever was to get everybody into the underground facilities, start up the power, start up the water, bring in the nuclear power just for that facility that'll be never ending for underground or the facility. It seems like everything is gone live. And, you need to ask yourself a question, why? Because, for tonight's show, also Ransom had, was talking about the fuel prices. And I will say something, around 2008, I remember the financial crisis well. I was invested in the market and should have gotten out. I learned a lot about that time. Oil went to $147 a barrel. And all the analysts, it's going to 200, it's going to, never listen to them. If it goes to a certain point, we were able to take off some gains, take them off. Take off part of your position, because if it goes up, great. If it doesn't, you didn't lose. That crashed the global economy to what turned out to be the great financial crisis in 2009 and 10. Oil at 147. And it looks like we are quickly moving to 140 here this week and next if things continue the way they are. So if that's a feel-good show, I don't know what else is. The Ransom Godwin joining me tonight. Thanks for the tunes in the beginning. Incredible music to break us into. Let's go here.
Right. We can
And
all
aren't you
go.
releasing an album? Aren't you going to be releasing an album soon out of all this?
Maybe so. I don't know. Hold on.
Sneak peek right here.
Right. Let's get into that data center stuff before we totally go nuclear. You know, some of these I had up last week. Data centers have united Americans, both parties, in a shared hatred, supposedly. And you know, I'm seeing that reflected on social medias. And then you got, you know, all of these articles, and I mean they're en masse. U.S. data centers protest goes national as backlash grows. And here's this picture.
Oh, that's
you
that's
sent
the
me over
image I
here.
sent you on Teams. And also keep in mind, the same time that all these AI is being promoted in the social media, so is the cutting down of flock cameras. Go cut down your local flock camera. Is the messaging in social media promoted, amplified, just as the data center? We're all in it together, promoted and amplified. Notice those two messages getting mainstream amplification now. A reason why they would usually quash something like that.
Yeah. And like you were talking about, it just took a little bit to totally eradicate this and put this offline. Uh, you know, and Elon Musk and other billionaires are basically the source of any, you know, major data centers that are going to be created in the near future, along with continuity of government, especially the Chinese, Russians, Americans. I imagine the UK, whatever structure that is going to morph into. Um, you know, they're all going to the data centers. And I wanted you to look at this right here. So everybody's mad everywhere. It's like the flock cameras. You were told to be mad about it. And let me tell you why. It's because they wanted to, from a grassroots level, create an anti-tech atmosphere to destroy all of the outdated, obsolete ways that they could do this, which will allow them and give them the opportunity, the authority, and the resources to create the next level technology that you can't mess with. And we've talked about that many of times, putting it in space. Space data centers proposed by Musk and Bezos, catastrophic for the planet. And this is basically a super greeny, belly aching article about, let's go down here and just look at exactly what they say. They're saying the spacecraft will release all this black suit of rare metals, aluminum oxide, and other pollutants. Now, if you don't have a goldfish memory, I want you to just put a pin right there in that part of this article for later in the show. The spacecraft releases black soot, rare metals, most likely heavy metals, aluminum oxides, and other pollutants with unknown effects. Now, let's roll back up here where it says catastrophic. And I want you to see the sheer numbers. Somewhere in this article, it said the sheer numbers that they plan, and it's in the millions. So you were thinking like, you know, 1,000, 100. No. We're talking millions of data centers floating around in space. Where was it? Yeah, here it is. Proposed millions of orbital data centers, just like I predicted. It's now totally public. This is where we're going. And if you wanted to, kind of trip out on which way the winds are going to blow with this, so you're going to be on the wrong side of things if you're a super anti data center person. And if you don't believe me, let's check out what Trump said on this exact topic right here.
Oh, wait a second. Let me pull that off. Hold on. I have exactly what you're talking about right here. If you give me 1 second to jump into it.
Yeah,
this goes and aligns perfectly with. So this is from Leo Labs. This is satellites going into orbit from 1957 to 2025. So if you want to take a look at the amount that were even back in the 1960s. So if they're saying that aluminum oxides are coming out of the atmosphere in black soot, think about the amount of damage that was done to the ozone layer and the mesospheric layer with all that going up there too. Perhaps that wasn't the hairspray cans that damaged the ozone. Perhaps it was all of this, and that's why they started to, do things in a different way, use different fuels, use different metals to go up, because in the 60s and 70s, there was unchecked. So maybe that was truly the damager of the ozone, but they blamed it on us using a hairspray can. But like you said, this is only at about 10,000 satellites, what you're looking at here as we move in through the animation. 10,000. So what happens when we go to 1 million?
More.
More, yeah. So that would be the question is.
Well, now I have to be fair to these demonstrations. There's a lot of like I said, anti-technological movement kind of, and opinions forming in the public, partially because it's unknown, partially because it's a nightmare whenever you consider the scenarios that it can create with the technology that it holds. But think about this. They do push that, and I saw a friend of mine on Twitter posting a little graphic kind of like that. It was even worse, where they pushed the scale of the satellite versus the Earth so large, obviously, so you could see them. Because if you looked at it at scale, there's no way that you could possibly see any of the satellites looking at the Earth, in that context. Not that we ever get to, except for this past moon mission. But the argument's going to come up, and I can tell you right now that the people that are anti-data center people are going to get shunned and ridiculed and basically blocked off in their own little echo chamber blockchain of disapproval. And let's just listen to President Trump and his opinion on this exact subject, the debate, the like or dislike of data centers.
Because you have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you're going to have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection. But you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce taxes. And you're going to have something that if you don't have it, everybody else wants it.
Did
Right.
you say protection is a military protection?
That's right. They're going to protect these things, and don't worry about it. They're going to get the resources too. And you're just thinking about it wrong. You need to get back over to thinking about it like something good. You heard it from the Don himself. Oh, Don Coupon there, talking about how we're going to make so much money. And I don't doubt him. Two things can be true. Most of these things that are always set to benefit humans in the human domain often turn into totalitarian tools for enslavement. And that's just the reality that we live in there with that.
Totalitarian two-step. Oh, yeah. Hey, it's interesting that you were talking about this. I have some other images for us here, and you're not going to believe it. Ransome and I didn't even try to coordinate on the show before anything, but I had picked up a couple other things here also on this same vein, doing some research on, it's very, so I'm staying in Taiwan now, down in southern Taiwan. There's way less light pollution down here than in the north, but still there's a lot of light pollution. But we saw Starlink satellites on several occasions go over, and I was like, damn, even down here where there's very high light pollution, you can still see that. So it was baffling for me. I was watching a couple videos, and here Starlink satellites are leaking signals, radio signals that interfere with our most sensitive radio telescopes. So this is what we're getting as a grid view in the sky when they're trying to, get frequencies from a star or a star system or a nebula or some sort of zeta pinch, quasar, plasma rope, whatever it is in space, further afield, other galaxies. And it's interfering with that now to the point where our multi-billion-dollar equipment meant to look out into space to understand where we came from, is there anything else out there? It's pretty much rendered useless now with just this small amount of Starlink satellites. So when we start putting these things in space, and you're talking about 100x increase in the amount of satellites, that our most advanced remote sensing equipment for at least looking out off planet is just basically recyclable metals at the moment. You're looking at this type of star pattern. This is a freeze frame, obviously. I think they did a 30-second exposure on this one, but look how many satellites pass through in 30 seconds. Like you were saying, you can't see them with the eye. Film can capture them pretty well, but Yeah, what they're finding is they are allowed a frequency of 137 megahertz. That's on their band, 137.5. That's allotted to them. But what they're finding is there's signal spillover up into the 150s, up to 159.4. Now, that would be like you as a radio station saying you're supposed to be at 101.5, and you're like, well, we took 101.5 all the way to 109.6 and all the way down to 88.1 as well, but good enough. We're not breaking the law because we had our allotted channel. It just spilled over to include everything else. These frequencies are not allotted by these satellites, but they are, as they say, spilling over signal. Now, again, this is a big problem. Not a lot of people are talking about it. So are we giving up our ability to sense and even record asteroids coming into our near-Earth orbit here? Or is that going to be a thing of the past where we can even notice that there's near-Earth objects coming into us because the satellites are up there? I mean, that is a huge difference of allotted bandwidth on the megahertz frequency scale compared to where you spill to. That's more than 25 upward. That's insane. That, again, but nobody's talking about. It's up in space. You can't see it. So these, we are at the end of ground-based space exploration as you know it. Because here's another one, and this is off of space.com. So they've analyzed 76 million radio telescope images, and they found zero where the Starlink satellites didn't interfere with their signal processing. And again, here's your streaks. It's amazing that whatever radio telescope is using this comes up with the same exact bounce back effect. There's no way we can actually look out any longer the way we used to. That is, we're going to have to do something different with it. But it's pretty interesting that 76 million images came back. And let's see here. I'll read the paragraph for you just so I can quote it for you. Quote, an analysis of 76 million images from a prototype station for the Square Kilometer Array, SKA, radio telescope found Starlink satellite emissions on 30% of the images in some data sets. Such interference could affect research outcomes that depend on data. The survey identified 112,000 radio emissions from 1,800 Starlink satellites and observed that the interference was not intentional. And then they put it the same thing at 150 megahertz versus 159. So even the spill from their allotted 139 to 150, still egregious in that kind of, they identified 703. Well, those should be immediately taken out of orbit then. And then let's see what the date of this article was. Yeah, this is July 29. That was even last year. So some of these other articles are a little more recent here. Let's share this one. This comes off Universe Today, the Universe Space Tech. And here's their image of the exact same thing with radio telescopes trying to look out. So the interference is real. And if you take this in a broader context, this is a grid being put across our planet. If you're thinking about caging in a planet, they're electromagnetically caging us in here. And again, this was on June 13th, 2025, a little over a year ago. So you got to think about the advent and the movement of a year ago to today, and think about it with a straight face. How many times have you seen things, how much technology is in advance, and how many more satellites have been launched in the last 12 months? So even this data that I'm showing you here is already outdated. It's already outdated because it's been over a year, and the exponential increases in not only size, breadth, and number, but the computing power and processing is, we've hit that curve where, you looked at it in the beginning. There's a bunch of these plot curves that show you how the tech can get better. It can double. Well, now it's doubling in like a week instead of a year. So the deployment of all these new systems, a year for us now in technology is something like decades was just a couple years ago. Like the movement of it is so exponential. We're really at this inflection point. Some people call it the singularity, but I believe we are at that or in the process of entering into the singularity currently at the speed at which these things are rolling out and deploying. Just saying.
Right. But, all those questions that you were asking about information from outside of the Earth's atmosphere looking out into space. I don't know if you remember a conversation we had a few years ago when we were kind of talking woo-woo about it, an alleged or possible, kind of informational wave that comes from the galactic center every so often. A lot of people believe in that kind of thing. And I was mentioning that we were putting up so many satellites and 5G, 6G, whatever, so much electromagnetic interference that we would be totally numb. And it seemed like, because we kind of, added also the idea of a weakening magnetic field, that they would be in a hurry if there was such a thing, an awakening, an evolution, some kind of energetic, something that humans responded to on Earth. And there would be no way that we would get that after they built this artificial net, like you're saying. It's a prison planet. That term's been floated around a lot of times. And now you actually get to see the bars being installed. Now, all of that information that you were talking about, NEOs and, aliens, or, what's going on out there with supernovas and binary stars, and, the whole bit of the plethora of things they describe and say are out there. You can't look at it yourself, but don't worry. SpaceX and everybody else has got you covered, because there'll be a blanket of these satellites, circling the globe, and they will give you the digitized, rendered pictures of not only the moon, but everything else out in the universe. Now, this coalesces at the same time as the emergence of the super AI and quantum computing being able to dictate reality to you in real time now. All of the information that you'll be getting from now on from the internet, as the old sources, avenues, and portals close up, will only be that of the machine, the information given by the machine. I mean, right now we're pretty much there. Anywhere you look or any avenue you go for information and media is outsourced and, kind of kettled and then spun and, lying by omission and things like that constantly. We all know of Operation Mockingbird, and the idea that it ever went away is laughable. And, we had the Schmitz-Muntz Act, and, the list goes on and on. Now, these same people, and I say the same people because despite administrations changing, there's a core group of people that never changes. It's the Kissinger types, or whoever, has taken his place in today's world. The deal makers, the brokers, like when they opened up China to be part of the New World Order and gave them all the manufacturing jobs and pretended to act like they didn't know that they were creating an alternative superpower to compete with the United States. They all knew that, and those people aren't gone. Some people call them neocons or globalists. Other people have more colorful names for the different groups out there. But they're in action, and now we're talking trillions of dollars moving that there's no way any accountant or, administrative body doing some kind of, audit is ever going to uncover. All of this information is now controlled, uploaded, and, diluted, you might say, to hide wherever any of this black budget money that once just disappeared, and they just openly would admit it in Congress or, at the Pentagon. Oh, well, we don't know where the $2.4 trillion is right now. And then, that number grows into 4.6 trillion, and then it's, how many trillion now?
18.
Until, yeah. Right. But SpaceX
18 trillion. No, that's no joke. It's 18 trillion,
right,
approximately.
And then SpaceX, you can go get that. Mark my words. You just saw that they're putting up millions of satellites carrying data centers. Now, that's just one avenue of technology that a satellite can deliver to space, is a miniature data center. There's lots of other stuff. There's weapons applications. There's those things we were just talking about, sensors looking at the universe, giving us our information, filtered by the AI, obviously, because those are the same companies that control the AI, that want the data centers, that own the satellites, that are creating the grid. There's really no way out of it. The question is how do we live in it once it's created? And it looks like, not to be a negative Nelly or a doomer or none of that stuff, but judging from the fads and the news and the actions of governments, we are in basically World War III. Everybody's moving. And the reason I made that song earlier is because I thought it was laughable that they're talking about a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia, when, there's been long-standing rumors about Saudi Arabia already owning several nukes, storing them in Pakistan, having them on their own owned F-16s that the United States sold them that are nuclear capable of dropping basically gravity bombs. Now they can drop those off anywhere they want in the Middle East. And now they're acting like they're pushing the brakes on this deal. The only deal that was about to happen is everybody's about to admit some of their cards as the game changes here. Now we have all of the ports, just as we predicted a few years ago, the Red Sea, Suez Canal, you got the Strait of Hormuz, the Panama Canal, all of them in or about to be in military operations.
Yeah, and if you pull up that chart again of SpaceX, we talked about this, and I said, as soon as that IPO is over, that thing's going to drop like a rock. Be careful with it. And look where we sit, way below the IPO price. For you and me, it was 160 get in price. But for those who were institutional investors, they were getting in as little as $9, $7, $12, $15. There's a whole range of, depending on how many billions you put in to participate in, is the preferential rate that you received as an institutional investor, way under that. So this is going to be close to the bottom price. Remember, I was talking about August 11th is when the unlock is for 25% of these shares that were locked in on the people who participated in the initial seed offering of this IPO here. So as we come through the rest of the month here, this should go back up. But between now and then, how many disruptions are there going to be? Because you see wheat starting to skyrocket and rice really starting to hit it. We've lost the fertilizer. The diesel is going to be expensive at harvest time. We didn't get hardly anything out of maturation, and the crops are lean and scrappy this year because they just didn't have fertilizer. So as we come up through a few of these things, like, Ransom, you could put in Market Watch, you can put wheat in there, and you can put Kansas wheat and see what the prices were on the delivery date for some time, probably like a December, November delivery month, something like that. But the prices are way up on wheat. And if they can take down the economy for just a minute, we could implement the new system. But what would be required to do that? Well, we'd have to commit to this slow burn contagion where we're coming into now. And at the same time, if a nuke were to be dropped in the Middle East, it would send panic for 7 to 10 business days. And people will get used to it. And then they would come back in and be like, all right. So Ransom, at the top there, it says 1D. You can change that to like 1 to 5 years or something. Yeah, right up, just in that black there. Yeah, where it says 1D, drop that down. Go to like a 3-year, for example. That's close in enough. And you can see how we're starting to spike up here above at least the last 3 years of pricing, equivalent to what we saw in January 24. Yeah, go to the all. I'm curious what the all has. If you drop down to that last tab there, all. Yeah, so to put this into context, where we're sitting on the wheat, we're going to come up to the record pricing eventually here this year, it looks like. Where we sit now and where we go by the end of the year is going to eclipse that 2022 mark. And if you go further back in like 2012, you start to see we're getting close. If there wasn't the contagion during the virus and the COVID during that time, where people couldn't go plant and there was so much disruption in supply chains, if that spike wasn't there, we would be at nearly record pricing all the way back to as high as the prices went in 2011 and 2012. The only reason we're not is because COVID came in. This is happening for the crops across the world. Corn's hitting it. Wheat's hitting it. Rice has already begun to really spin up much higher than the rest. So if people are already struggling to afford food, there's all kind of chatter about that. That's why we've been such proponents of growing your own food. My God, since the beginning days of the channel, we're like, you're going to need to grow your own food. This thing is going to get nasty. It's going to get expensive at the end, and you're going to need a permission to buy your food at the end. And we went through COVID, and a lot of that occurred, and then everybody's like, oh, you guys, you're just over talking. But here we sit at the cusp again, and if you didn't learn the first time, sorry. But we are going to get racked on the knuckles with a ruler here coming up through these food pricing through the end of the year. Now, there has to be something where the price shall increase back up so those IPO subscribers can get their money back out. So SpaceX is going to do a little dippy-do here, and it should come rolling back up around 150, 160, at least in the estimations of analysts that I look at, talking about the big players want their money out, and they're all going to sell on the same days approximately on these algorithmic order book. A lot of the orders are sitting at 150. So they're planning on it coming back to around that price to get out. So if you got it for $7, and let's say you're BlackRock and you pulled in at $7 on a juicy on that, you're going to want to milk every dollar. And then after that, SpaceX is going to have a collapse until the next unlock. When that SpaceX collapses, at the same time, you could also anticipate the rest of the market going down with it, because if you've been following the last week, none of these AI companies have done anything. Google's down, all the AI companies are down. Everybody's starting to shift the money. They're going to move the money over the next month here. Money's got to go somewhere. But everybody wants their money out of SpaceX. This is the biggest one ever. So they're all kind of tied together. But what is the event after SpaceX unlock that can crash the markets to the point of, I mean, we're looking down at the bottom going, holy smokes, is that even possible? And then it'll bounce back up V-shape immediately with a new monetary system put in play, or at least parts of the new monetary system. This will give the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, the DTCC, a chance to test its battle-hardened, tokenized global basket for liquidity in a global contagion event. They haven't tested it yet in real life. They tested it on computer. You know, they did the simulations. It worked in their simulations, but reading from the Bank for International Settlements documents, they need to test it in real time to see if it works, but there hasn't been a big crash like that. They could do a flash crash, August and parts of September, and then the market starts to come back in October again, something like that. But this SpaceX is so tied into the rest of what is going to happen. And I would ask you, Ransom, if a nuclear weapon, like a proper one, was dropped somewhere in the Middle East, how long do you think the effect of shock and awe would last on the planet? Before people started to go, okay, we recovered, it only damaged this much, we're back, we can stabilize everything, and everybody agrees, no more nukes, and then the whole this thing, and peace now, forever.
Well, there's no way they would just drop one. Somebody else is going to drop another one.
Yeah, right. It's going to be limited.
That's just how that works.
5, something like that.
The only reason that there was no retaliation in World War II is because no one else could. That's not true today. We have many nations that have the potential to do it. And, you know, we don't know what the background workings is. Like I was talking about, there's been rumors for years about Saudi Arabia, you know, holding their nukes over in Pakistan. And as you know, Pakistan is a mostly Muslim country that doesn't like India. They got nukes specifically, it's seemingly just to, you know, be at odds with China over there, which also India. But then India's at odds with Pakistan. So there's going to be some kind of side picking. And who's going to tell Putin that he can't drop a nuke on Kiev if we drop a nuke, or our ally, our greatest ally, drops a nuke on Iran? Or what if it's the Iranians that really are lying about having the capability? Because they wouldn't be the only ones in the area that are lying about it, or at least not going public with it. And now it seems like we're just going to go public with it. As you saw on the news, we're having this nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia that seems to possibly already have those nukes anyway. And, you know, then everybody would be wondering, because that would totally change the dynamic of, will they continue to favor their Semitic brothers over there in our greatest ally, or will they go with their Muslim side of how will that play out? Will they actually war with Iran or side with Iran? There's no telling. And I actually wanted to get into exactly that, because there's a whole bunch of steps here that lead me to believe that is exactly what's going to happen, a small exchange in two different areas. You remember the conversation we were having one show about all of the train routes and new pipelines that were being built basically from Southeast Asia all the way over to the theater that's now in question in war right now. And there's a whole bunch of, here, let me just skip to this
Yeah, let me say something. The new pipeline from Iran through Syria to bypass the Strait of Hormuz just went live as well. So you could expect that to be bombed.
All right, so let's just check this.
Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, that whole area from Iran going over through Central Asia all the way to China by pipe, rail, and highway. Yeah, there you go. There's your map.
Yeah, so this right here is what
Yamal
we're
gone.
talking
That
about.
yellow strike in the little stripe in the middle. That's the first thing I would hit if I went to war with, like, on a serious war. I would take all the oil out, and then I would damage Saudi Aramco, so no oil left around the planet. That would send in a contagion that we'd have to revamp. So we'd have to do it different after that.
Right. So the U.S. and Israelis are hardcore behind this idea of making several pipelines that go from the interior over here of Iraq and possibly Iran soon to go right over here to where did I tell you guys? Remember to look out for the next conflict where it's going to start on the island of Cyprus.
Cyprus.
Right. So they're going to be making these pipelines over here, but there's a problem. We have Turkey that flips sides and is really open about joining an Islamic Republic, which basically puts them back in the Ottoman Empire kind of arrangement there with the other actors in the region. I'll just put it that way. So you can see that from the conversation we had last time, it kind of stopped right there at Iran, on the other side of Iran. Now you're getting to see the maps for the pipelines and the progress from the other side, from the Western world, that's trying to push this out to have that key spot, which I originally said when I was talking about that they're about to redo the borders. And what do you have to do if you're going to do any of that? You have to go to the classically controlled spot like Tyre or Lebanon or Jerusalem. Any of those places would be fine because that is the area that classically you had to hold to control the entire Mediterranean and all of the trade into the the seas and all of that. All the trade routes had to end there or begin there. And that's what we're seeing. We're going to see the big war over this. So who's going to tell Putin that he can't drop one on Kiev if we drop one on Iran? And then, China's like, well, if you guys are playing games, we got this little problem to the south of us off the shore. I don't think that they would nuke Taiwan, though. I think they would just threaten it. I think they want it. They don't want to destroy it. It's a strategic location that would help them control the entire Pacific Ocean. And then you have the South Koreans flip-flopping up there, talking about reunification with electing kind of really socialist, communist-style leaders in their country. So who knows where that's going to go? So we got all of these theaters that are just ready to drop off. They're just waiting for that trigger, like you said, for someone to push the button. But we have all the reasons in the world, literally the global economy, to go there. And everything's lining up, just for that. Everywhere.
Yeah, I would make a comment, though. Now, it depends on the largeness or the size of, doesn't even have to be nuclear. But the Houthis were actually going to start targeting over into Saudi Aramco, which is the largest refineries and storage facilities on the planet. So if they were to start to take these facilities out and the pipeline, specifically the Yamal pipeline, that yellow line on your map there, in the theater of war, for sure, that's the first thing you would take out all the energy infrastructure, so it would take 10 years to bring it back. But at that point, we would literally lose 20% of the world's oil. And fertilizer, 30% of the world's fertilizer would go offline indefinitely. So where would that leave us in terms of the economy of the world first? But to try to feed the population of the world would be impossible at that point if we lost 30% of the world's fertilizer. The amount of people that are living now really couldn't be sustained by that. Because by the time you bring a facility on and you get a processing plant going and you even try to get the mines to bring even if you just dig potash from the ground and you're just going into some old, let's just, super simple. Nauru Island, they used to have a bunch of bat guano there. So that was one of the big mining operations, was mining all the bat guano or bat poop over 10,000 years that they left in these caves and all over the island. That was like hundreds of feet thick, and sold that off as fertilizer, like prime fertilizer. All right, that's going to be used up in the first year. And where do we go from there? There's really not those kind of options left. Yeah, there's some, things we could still mine out across the planet in terms of base for that NPK mix, but the carrying capacity of the world would have to decline 30%. And I don't think the economic activity would be there either if we lose 20% of the world's oil on like a permanent not coming back. Then all the adjustments we would see, for sure we'd be at $300 a barrel oil. You wouldn't be driving your car. And Ransom, do you mind if I play that video about the auto parts that are being damaged and on purpose now and destroyed? Let me come in here. This is a guy named is Yak Motley. Shout out, dude. I watch your stuff a lot. He puts these compilations together of just things that are of modern interest to us. You know, things as either the food's too expensive or something like this. So here we go. This is just about a 1 minute, 2 minute segment. You're watching the woman on the left explain when they went to get a replacement motor for one of their vehicles. So here we go.
So do you guys remember a couple months ago seeing those videos about junkyards, salvage yards magically catching on fire, kind of like everywhere across the U.S.? Well, I am at a salvage yard in PA right now because my husband needed a motor for his 2006 Chevy Silverado. And he was talking with the guys inside, and he came out and he's like, listen, he's like, because we're getting a really good price on this motor, by the way. He said, the guy at the salvage yard, said that the government has told them that they need to get rid of all of the motors that are 15 years old. And if any new ones come in, instead of pulling them, they need to crush them. Makes you really wonder, doesn't it?
You know, yeah, so that's where it is. Like even the old world of if you were able to repair things on your own and swap out, because you know, living in the Southeast US, everybody got that skill set still. I got 3 really cool neighbors. Charlie, shout out if you're watching the video. Randy, he doesn't watch too much YouTube, but these guys can build and rip apart anything and put it back together. You give them like a hairpin and some copper wire, and they're going to build you a motor out of it. You know, these kind of MacGyver kind of guys are still out there everywhere. Older generation, but they can fix anything, any kind of car part. They can go find it because the salvage yards are still there. So you can still go out. Even around my area, there's 2 of them that are really big. And I say really big, there's thousands and thousands of damaged and crashed vehicles that you can go pull parts from. Well, if that's going to be the case, then your motor oil usage, that makes sense, where they're going to decide when you can drive, how far you can drive, where you're going to be able to drive to, and on which days. If motor fuels are that valuable because we're at $300 barrel in oil, all the Middle East has taken offline for a decade, then it would actually make sense why they're trying to implement these restrictive models of driving while the flock cameras are out there. So if you're caught in the wrong area, they could flag your license plate and automatically turn off your car. You know, it all fits. Like we're coming into a very controlled society here, and I don't know the tripwire for all of this control. It's there for a reason, because somebody knows that this level of control is going to be needed. Is it because we're going to lose 30% of the world's food production and we're going to have food riots everywhere, and that's really the main reason? Are you telling me that data centers need 2 million gallons a day of water and their own nuclear power plants? I don't think so. I think there's something else under there that people are fleeing to, and it's game on already. So whatever comes next is going to be pretty immediate in my 50,000-foot view of it here. We got the SpaceX IPO. Everybody's expecting to crash in August. We got this possible nuclear exchange going on. War's going to ramp up all in the next month or so. And then where does that take our world is the question. Because AI is done. Like the investment's not there anymore. That money is rotating out. Everybody realized you can't spend trillions of dollars on something with like a $50 return on it. Yeah, the sniff test here just smells like mierda.
Right. Well, let me tell you something from my limited, intellect. Taking apart cars, I've always found, was nothing harder than Legos. It's really not that complicated. People make it seem like it's complicated. You give me a 10, a 12, a 14, I can strip a car in a parking lot and turn it into nothing in a second. Now, to get what you were talking about, I know a lot about this subject, especially the auto parts industry and the salvage industry, which includes the insurance auto auctions, which were a really big thing for a long time. Now, the smaller market would be used car parts. That's really not even considered, probably since the 80s, as a larger business in the overall car industry. Then you have new OEM parts, aftermarket parts, and things like that that you might get your mechanic to buy and put on your car. Or if you know the guy down at the body shop, you might save a little money by not using OEM parts, but you have the right for any place to use those. Matter of fact, you can insist that they use only OEM brand new parts from the manufacturer, from the auto industry. Now, when a car crashes, the insurance companies started playing this game where they would total the car, even though there was very minimal damage to the car, especially when the new cars started coming out. Now, the program that they were talking about was funded by the Obamas, where they were destroying motor blocks for quite some time to get rid of the massive amount of used, old, analog, basically, vehicles and the massive amounts of parts that Americans have cultivated over the decades. They wanted that gone, not only for the new manufacturing of cars to make more money, but because the insurance auto auction people wanted to resell those moderately damaged cars that have been totaled by the insurance company, where people like myself would go buy, bid on them at the auction, buy a car that's basically not hurt at all, that may or may not still have a clean title. Matter of fact, some of them that are crunched really bad never got around to being adjusted by the insurance people and still have a clean title. So just because you have a clean title doesn't actually mean you're driving a safe car around. It could fall apart and have shoddy mechanic work or body work, or mechanic, like actually, the frame and things like that could fall apart. You have no idea with that. People depend on an automatic Carfax or things like that for the vehicle history, which is basically silly. Now, you can get new cars from there that basically have no damage and resell those cars. And they don't want that to happen anymore because they've already paid off on that exact car. So you buy that car from the auction, you sell it to a customer. It has a clean title. They drive it, they get in a small fender bender again, and then it's damaged. But all of that is just a side note. The real thing is because somebody with a small intellect could take some wax, some petroleum jelly, boil a little bleach, make some crystals, I don't know the recipe, and put that and pack that into an AI automotive car and tell it to go to 1600 somewhere, and it would go there with no one in it. And that is what they fear the most. They want to turn over to this technological revolution. The only problem is that you can add analog technology to their new AI digital technology and create havoc in this world. And they know that. And that's why for the last 30 years, they've been trying to shut down and get rid of the private ownership of cars, especially those cars that are not controllable, that cannot be turned off. That's really what we're talking about, is preemptively eliminating any factors that they don't control in the new network that they're creating.
Something to be said for 79 and earlier models. I had this old Jeep. I used to have a 76 Jeep Cherokee because I was telling Ransom just before, I'm going to go and buy another 76 Jeep Cherokee at auction. Because I had one before, and they were like that. You could get in, a motor was so big, you could go swimming in that thing, just in this space around the block there. I mean, you could get any rent. There was no special tools required. It was so easy to fix. And I really had never done that much work on cars. And fixing that thing, things would go wrong. It was just like a 13th hand car. I was living out in Hawaii, and the next dude who left the island, somebody would keep buying and somebody would stay for 3-4 years, sell it again. It just was like really like a 13th, 15th hand car. Did the body, body work on it, but you always have to do a little bit of engine work. And that really clued me into what was before compared to what is now. And I'm absolutely unequivocally, with the money I'm saving, going to buy an older vehicle and just keep the basic parts around for me to repair that. Maybe even go to the salvage yards and buy an extra, block or something, just so I have one. If I lose a head gasket or lose any part off of that, I can get it. Doesn't really matter. Having these older cars that are EMP proof and also AI proof that still run, because if you can create and do biodiesel in your own locale with whatever types of oil-bearing seed plants you can grow and harvest. You can create your own motor fuels. If you know how to distill, you can create your own motor fuels. So that's the whole thing. And the farmers, a lot of this stuff in the Rockefeller days back in the 1920s coming into prohibition and thing was all about stopping people from making their own fuels out on the farms. I mean, that was a really big thing. Corn ethanol is not a new thing to put ethanol in a mandate, E15. Dude, they were doing that 120 years ago. People were always making their own fuels, but then they got on, okay, you got to get people out, got to get them on the pump, got to get them to pay. We need the tax for the county, the state, whatever. But that was started, you got to realize that started more than 100 years ago. More than 100. Today, we're in 2026. We're way back in like the late 1918, 1919 era. More than 100 years ago. And they're already making their own fuels and getting through it. So if you can rewind that clock again, where the motors are easy to work on, and you can actually produce your own fuels, there's really nobody that would be able to control your movements. And that's the whole thing, is they want to control the movement. So for me, doing the Adapt 2030 channel for such a long time and knowing that we are at the point of a rollover civilization event where in the very near future, there was not going to be the ability for us to feed the planet because of natural disruptions. And I'm half wondering if all of this that we're seeing in the war front is to cover what the natural disruptions were to crop production. So there's an excuse why we lost 30% of the world's crops. Is it that expensive diesel fuel, or was it magnetic field decline? Was it shifting jet streams and ultra high UV coming down, or was it from the war and the disruption from the Strait of Hormuz, the tankers couldn't get out? Like, I'm wondering about a lot of this overlay, like the data centers, are they really there? Do they need that much water? Or are they actually allowing a city to have water?
Yep.
That's the whole thing. It doesn't make sense half the time of what we're seeing. So, thanks for the automotive insights there. I mean, but if you do, so Ransom, before we go on the break here, if you're able to produce your own fuels, fix your own car and have it not connected to the grid, like what kind of freedom does that give you at that point compared to a totally controlled, monitored system? You're literally outside the system at 100% at that point.
Well, when you consider all of the surveillance from the millions of new satellites down and all of the sensors that are going to be everywhere, basically driving around a car would be just like a person without a phone. You would be a target immediately. This thing is not going to put up with outliers. This new vision of the future is that's the part that's getting eliminated, is the outliers. And when you look in the Middle East, what do you see there? Pockets of outliers. You can judge them for their belief systems or how they live or any of that, but when it comes down to it, you cannot have a worldwide government and a government surveillance grid if you have pockets of outliers. Now, for a long time, the only thing we could do is just look at them with satellite because we couldn't really get in there. But when you know every move they're making, and they're also accepting all the new modern technology, we can just text them. You saw that in the news a few years ago. They just texted them. And there's many ways of closing the dragnet, so to speak. And that's what I see is being moved. We always talk about this reset. And I always mention that any real reset of a new system, you have to turn the old system off. Just like a computer, you have to reboot it with the new operating system. So before you can do that, you got to, get rid of all those loose ends, which are free peoples all over the world and their analog technology, the possibility for them to grow, eat, and live without the permissions or the help or the governance of anybody. And that's what they've been stamping out. So you can't tell me that the upcoming famines that are undoubtedly coming, now that we know what's been happening this entire summer, that alone would cause it. But we all know that there's been a slowly moving program to reduce the overall output of food on this planet for the last 20 years. They've reduced the energy. They've reduced the ability for farmers to do certain things by putting in rules and regulations. And they've made alternative foods that are in direct competition with the naturally grown food that somebody can live off of at their home. They've made it illegal to grow in places. They've made laws to control the water, the energy, and the air. I mean, this is a program that's moving forward, and anyone that says it's not an organized program is only kidding themselves.
Speaking of the outliers, we go on break here. Iran mined 6% of all Bitcoin, 6 to 8% of all Bitcoin on the planet in 2025. In 2024, they mined 4 to 5% of all Bitcoin around the planet. Now, if America's trying to become the Bitcoin capital and the crypto capital of the world, you want to take out one of those competition outliers also with their banking system outside of our SWIFT and controlled systems. I mean, that's why they want to go after the crypto there. Anyway, we're going to come right back. Enjoy the sponsors. We love these products. And if you want to support us, keep your summer going, keep yourselves healthy. You support them, they support us. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Feeling the heat, the exhaustion, the withering, being out in the heat. The summer returns once again. Time to rehydrate. We got hydration that works as hard as you do. Perform Light. Got sodium, potassium, magnesium, superfood recovery blend, vitamin C. And as Victory Nutrition International would say, recharge, replenish, recover faster. If you want to support this channel, support our advertisers. Fatigue-free summer. Stay hydrated. Perform Light. Click on that link in the description box below. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All their seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out TrueLeafMarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Product you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Welcome back for the second hour right here, the Civilization Cycle podcast, every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Check out some of the comments on buymeacoffee.com. Just before the break, I was looking at some of the Bitcoin mining statistics of E.S.T, because so eloquently spoken, Ransom talking about the outliers being taken out. So this machine will require total control and dominance. Think about the Borg, that old Star Trek episode where resistance was futile, and this species, electronic AI species, overran the planet, and anything that didn't comply was removed, destroyed, and the resistance was futile, so was said. So I just want to run a couple numbers with you here. Now, it's saying that numbers aren't exact because, well, information is more difficult to find, and Iran masked a lot of this information on purpose, knowing that the U.S. government would eventually come after them. Currently, between 1% and 2% of all Bitcoin ever mined was mined by E.S.T. Now, the current totals, at least some analysts are agreeing on a minimum of 200,000 Bitcoin under control that were mined. But 2% or even 1% is, we're talking about 20 million. So it comes in that range a little bit. Current value at $65,000. I rounded it up and just said 200,000 Bitcoin. 13 billion US dollars outside of control that they can be used swapped. If the price goes back up to 125, or it was at the last cycle peak high, it would be about 26 billion. But again, we've confiscated 300 billion of their assets, so it'd only be 10% of what we've taken so far. But the thing to look at that is, are the numbers real? And that is value that could never be taken away in terms of, you can't freeze that. It's not in the SWIFT system. It's money that could be used to do other things that's outside of Western control. Now, where do we see this in other nations that were outside Western control trying to do things with monies that were outside the US dollar? Oh, wait, let me see. Libya, Iran, Iraq, Syria. We could just go down the line there. Which countries have been invaded in the Middle East that wanted to use alternative systems, gold-backed dinars, gold-backed currencies, euros for oil payments? Oh, let me count the fallen nations. So the numbers are inexact. And with the new system coming in, this tokenized system, I just did a video yesterday that talked about J.D. Vance, who owns and is one of the main funders of something called Acre Trader. Now, Acre Trader allows you to buy farmland at a fractionalized piece. So they would generally, for example, 100-acre farm, they would buy the land on the farm, lock, stock, barrel, and the investors would put in $15,000 each, and they would sometimes lease that land out to another farmer to grow on it, or they would get a commercial grow to come in for themselves and take the yield off the grains off the land as that. And each year there was payback to the investors because that's cash flow. Whether you're leasing it out on 100 acres, which is not so economical, I forget, you'd have to look in each individual state to see what the lease rates were, but some of us as low as $500 a year to lease out an acre of land. So if you had 100, that's not very much. You're just looking at a few $1,000s. Got a mosquito in the house too. I don't know where it's coming from. But to grow something that you knew was going, yeah, and there you go. That green line is the actual value of farmland going up compared to the red S&P line. The gold is the gold. But at the same time, as the land's increasing in price, if you're an investor and you sell your one share back, they will divide that out by the total value of the new land. And then maybe you put in 15,000, the land doubled. You're going to get out not exactly double because they have maintenance fees, management fees, this sort of thing. But you'll probably get out 29,000 of that. But the cash flow is the interesting thing. In their cash flow model, either they grow the crops as a contract grow, and that in turn is sold off and that profit comes back in, which is much more profitable than leasing out the acre but it is in some places up to $2,000 a year to lease an acre. So if you had 100 acres, that's 200 grand inside the project yearly for cash flow. So see, these things are running in tandem where they're getting cash from operations and then the actual land itself increasing in value. So this is what people are tokenizing investing. And that's JD Vance right there, acre trader. And then Jeff Bezos, the same dude who wants to put satellites all over the place, is running a company called Arrive, ARRIVE, where what they're doing is they're buying out single home properties in the same way. You can invest as little as $500. So a lot of these properties are in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. So they'll get in 1,100 people or 1,000 people at $500 each to come in and buy these single property homes that they envision renting out for about $2,300 on average per month, to be able to be the cash flow to pay people this 6% or 7% interest on a yearly, not a monthly, on a yearly. Plus the value of the home could go up itself. Yeah, there you go. The value of the home could go up. And then if you decided to cash a share back in, let's say the home doubled in value, your $500 went to $1,000 minus fees, you probably get like $950 back. But at the same time, you're getting a recurring cash flow of 6.5% per year. You got to realize a bank right now is giving you 0.1%. So if you're putting into institutional money where they flow their monies, I don't understand what the thing is about stable coins, why the banks are so against stable coins where you can earn 4% yield. But you got all these real estate trusts out there giving 6.5%. But that's not the point. The point is there's a glut of real estate on the market right now. But Jeff Bezos's Arrive company is one of the first to go out there and do this. They own 10,000 homes already, from zero to over 10,000 properties in just a little over a year. There's copycats on the business model happening. So this glut of homes, this tokenized investment project for homes, eventually is going to swoop all the property in the United States. There will be no more available inventory. Every house will be owned by one of these tokenized real estate projects. And my whole thing in the video yesterday was, I'm paying rent to live in a house. Is that going to be kicked back on the investment that I'm getting because I invested $500 for somebody else who rents in a house? And this is how we're just going to swap the money around? And the whole thing is just the people at the top are going to take their management fees. And this is how we're supposed to live on universal basic income and tokenize into a smaller fraction of ownership of a property because we're never going to own anything. Is that, why Home Slice over there in Switzerland told us at the Davos forum that you own nothing and be happy? You start to look at this and all the other previous things we spoke about in hour number one start to lay on top of, you're going to be buying your food by the calorie coming up shortly, maybe not this year, shortly. Everything is going to be tokenized, and we already started doing this with stocks, bonds, anything else in the financial markets, insurance, everything else. Trillions of dollars is already being tokenized using stellar lumens inside the DTCC out of New York, which clears like $3 quadrillion per year. That's a Q, quadrillion. That's 1,000 trillions times 3,000 trillions. That's how much money moves, and they're tokenizing all of that. You're not going to own your house anymore. Let's say I've been paying my house. I quote unquote own it, but I don't own it. That, even though I'm not on Arrive's, let's buy a house and rent it to David because I have my own place, the banks are still going to take that because I have a small mortgage payment still on the house. and there's a bunch of equity because I paid for years on this land and property. What they're going to do is they're going to split that out in two pieces. The house that can't be moved is going to sit there. And they're going to make a smart contract of all the money that's been paid into the house. And they're going to pull that out into this money that can move around the planet because I can't move David's house over to Japan in 30 minutes. So they're going to split it out. They're splitting all equity out of everything on the planet at the same time. So even though you think you might not be involved in Arrive because you're not going to be a renter because you already own your own place, as of November of this year, your house is going to be owned by somebody else, not your bank. Your bank is pledging that capital into a basket of liquidity for the country so we don't default. Anybody in the world can use that and pull it into their country if they need it to stop a financial crisis. So we literally are at the end of owning anything as of this year. And then, trying to take away the cars, trying to, force you to have your ability to travel at any point turned off. They're, Canada's stopping flights to Cuba. We're reducing the amount of flights globally. I mean, everywhere you look, there's something under this control grid that's expanding. And I would love to get back in the cars too. And then, if we come into some sort of nuclear strikes and the markets go down, most people will be margin called and they're going to lose hugely everything. Because even if you're only out at a 1x on margin, like if you're going short for something, well, short would be good on a nuclear strike. But a lot of people are going to get wiped out. If the market falls 50% in one day on some kind of weird thing, I would imagine tens of trillions of dollars would evaporate out of most people's IRAs and 401ks. Because these funds that hold your money that you think like Fidelity's holding my 401k, they're leveraged out to like 10, 20 to 1, even though you didn't leverage your money. If they're going long on a 10 to 1 or a 5 to 1 and the market drops 50% in the afternoon, there's no way they can cover that at today's system the way we do it. Until that tokenized system comes in later this year, between now and then, anything that happens where there's a huge market drop like 10, 20, 30, 50, 70% in the afternoon, the entire financial system melts down completely to zero. Everybody will be wiped out. Everybody. You think you're secure because you got your 401k and all that? You're going to be wiped out because they margined it all. And this is the scariest thing. So, do you think that would, Ransom, what's your timeline? When do you think? You think this is all lined up and planned out that we're going to have this massive event to drive markets and crash to bring in the new system? So, and remove all the outliers. Give me a time. What are you thinking about?
I think we started this summer. This is the beginning of it. And I have, I have all of these articles up here from various different news sources that are all saying key things that tells me that this is not going to stop anytime soon. I never thought it was going to, actually, from the beginning, because it looked like a complete repeat of 2001 and the events that happened after that. But let's just look down the things. And by the way, let's first talk about this traveling thing that you were talking about, restricting traveling or making it where people don't want to travel. And I found this article from the New York Times very interesting. It says, should travelers give up on summer in Western Europe? Do you want to travel to Europe? And, I was thinking, oh, God, I watch so much internet. I could see why people don't want to travel to Western Europe or even Eastern Europe right now, like over in the Ukraine. So I went down through it and I looked at all the reasons. And, basically they're saying, well, it's not, all the stabbings, the fires or the culture clashes, rapes, murders, or none of that stuff. It's because it's hot, man. It's just so damn
heat
hot.
Dome, dude. Heat dome.
And they ain't got no damn air conditioner.
Oh, no.
I'm calling BS on that.
Rough in Italy, man. I can't have all that fresh pasta and good fresh veg while I'm sitting in a non-air conditioned balcony right next to the seaside, dude. How dare you?
Now, I got to admit that I was hiding in the air conditioner this morning doing computer work. And then when I went out to water stuff, I felt like the sun was peeling my skin off in the shade. It was pretty hot, but it was only like 100, 101 or something like that. It was just because I, desensitized myself inside, and I made a boo-boo and was watering some stuff and went inside to cool off for a minute and get a drink and totally spaced, so I went back outside to find an entire new reservoir on my land that I had, I'm sure that was a couple $100 mistake there. But, as far as these guys crying, I don't see why Americans would be crying to go over there. We live in some of the hottest places, muggiest places, driest places. True, we have air conditioner, but we don't spend all our time in there. If that was true, a day in Phoenix wouldn't look like it does. And when you get out in Phoenix, it's bumper to bumper traffic. People are angry. It's hot. It's every year. But they're acting like it's never happened before on the news here. 113, partly sunny, toasty conditions. Caution advised outside for being outside in extended periods of time. Now, it is very common for people not only to go to Phoenix and places like that, but even in my neck of the woods, from somewhere like from the East Coast or up north, and totally underestimate how weather changes and what that actually means for you. So people will come here. It's 101 in the daytime. They're wearing shorts and they're wearing, like I don't know what those are called for women, but the wife beater thing, and they're going hiking around. They're like, yeah, it's so hot. It's so hot. And then guess what happens? The sun goes down and it drops down to 70 degrees. So if you were at 100 and within 35 minutes, it just dropped down to 70 degrees because of the monsoon and the mountains and whatnot, guess what? You get hypothermia and die if you're not found. So if you're wandering around. And then the other thing is people underestimate the need for water when they come here. There's a real sad case of an elderly couple out at White Sands that they got lost somehow. I don't know how, but somehow they got lost and they shared a bottle of water till the two elderly people died of a heat stroke. And that because they gave their last water to a kid. So the park rangers just found some kid wandering around drinking a cap full of water every 20 minutes, like his grandparents told him to do. But people underestimate it. But people from here, this is nothing. This is a cakewalk. It gets 125 sometimes. Rising and nights offer little relief. It's always been this way in Phoenix. Ask any person from Phoenix. They'll laugh at you if you talk about it being hot and anything under than 110 degrees.
I'm trying to get Craig Simpson on the line now. He's in Scottsdale at the moment. So I'm trying to actually get a hold of him. Craig, if you're listening, I sent you some messages. Trying to get a hold of you live on Telegram to see if I want to get this. I said, is it really that hot, or is this a yearly thing, this heat dome that I'm seeing on the news? Is 110 Fahrenheit normal?
Real
I want to get he lives there, so I want to see what his response is.
Yeah, but look,
he's a solid guy. He's very straight on a lot of things. I trust his opinion.
This is part of that, we'll give you the temperature, but look down there at the number that they're telling everybody on the news. So if you're watching the local news, you're looking at the real feel. It feels like I identify as 2 or 3 more degrees hotter. The kind of nonsensical science stuff, like it feels, it real feels. They do that with the cold in the winter too.
Well, Dan, dude, I'm identifying as an Antarctic glacier today.
Anyway,
behind me, I'm part of that glacier right now.
Before we get back to the tumble and my timeline on destruction here, I thought that it was worth bringing up some of these other articles here that are kind of off the topic here. More earthquakes. No, that one's
right on topic with all the earthquakes, man. We talked about that not even 2 weeks ago after the Venezuela quake. According to the 1812, 1811 lineup, the way that then preceded the New Madrid fault zone, it went Argentina, Mexico, California, New Madrid, and boom, we got one right off the panhandle. Damn, dude, I'm making me nervous now.
Well, they keep messing with and relieving pressure on sleeping plates and faults and different things with the fracking, and that's all over the place. So yes, there's been increasing. Actually got to feel my first 5.0 in Alamogordo. It was just 90 miles south of us, and it was kind of bizarre because we don't have earthquakes here. And then here you got this.
Yeah, don't catch you off guard if you get a quake. They always make me woozy. You always feel like you're surfing on the earth. Weird.
Right. Here's more of the rewilding idea that keeps going on in the background as we phase into the new world. Red wolves
back in, man.
Bad idea. So this is happening in a lot of states. So what they're doing is they're creating these woodlands that are off limits to humans. But don't worry, they'll pop some data centers right in there and things like that in these areas that you're not allowed to go. And they're going to rewild them with carnivores that are known and have in the past eaten humans, especially if they get in large numbers. They're very bold animals. So
Do
these
we
are
need
red,
robot dogs at that point? We don't need robot sentries then if we got
You mean-
real wolves.
like the Japanese putting out their little robots to scare off the bears there. And speaking of bears are running amok all over the place. One just got electrocuted that went viral in New Mexico. It was so hot for the bear, and it couldn't find liquid water that it climbed up a telephone pole and eventually got electrocuted from the electrical wires that run down the same pole before anyone could rescue it. I don't know how they were going to rescue it anyway. It was a giant brown bear laying across the top of the telephone poles using the wires as kind of like a hammock to try to cool off, because I think there might have been a breeze up there. But either way, conditions of either less prey or, whatever you want to call it, less water, it could be in some areas, are causing bears to come out. And, if you think the government is on your side when it comes to protecting you from wildlife, that they are now helping to expand into new areas after, human progression made them regress into areas of the wilderness of, in extreme areas, they're now coming back. And according to the National Park Service, they won't kill grizzly that fatally attacked the glacier hiker. Now, I do admit that most of the time when...
Oh, that looks mean right there. Holy smokes. That's a terrifying photo right there. Whoa, sheesh.
Right.
You don't get the size of that. You just don't understand the size of that one there coming at you. There's
yeah, and these aren't
very
even...
few firearms will bring that one down charging.
Yeah, this is a grizzly, and keep in mind that grizzlies are actually quite small compared to Kodiak grizzly bears that live up in Alaska and stuff like that. And polar bears, which, by the way, are doing great despite the greenies rumors that they were in danger. They're doing great. Matter of fact, numbers have skyrocketed since they started keeping track of it. They're everywhere. They're eating everything because they are actually the apex predator. Now, it's funny to me that for some reason, these same billionaire groups are the ones that are trying to bring back the woolly mammoth, the dire wolf, bring back the grizzly bear in areas it wasn't, red wolves, gray wolves, timber wolves, you name it, European wolves. You're slowly being pushed out of your environment because the message is loud and clear. There's population reduction, and there's no room for you. And that leads
Well,
me
let me
in.
add a caveat to that. Canadian Ice Service polar bear census was what Ransom was referring to. I done way back in like 2015, 16. Everybody kept writing these damn articles about polar bear. So I did the research. And the whole thing is only half of the Arctic was mapped because the Russian side didn't have any data with it. At least that was not available to me or other researchers that were looking on the Russian side on the polar bear census. Just on the Canadian Ice Service, which included Alaska and included all the way up through Lapland, all the way over there, that whole northern circle area, their numbers had increased from 5,000 to 25,000. Now, keep in mind, that didn't include the whole Russian edge of it. So that's the great increase. Oh, and I got an answer from Craig here. He sent me that above average a little, that 100, but he says, it's slightly more than normal, but if it stays above 115 degrees for a few more days or another week, that's when it will become unusually hot. So there's your answer from somebody who lives there. It's normal unless it's a continued streak of that heat. So one day here, one day there, normal. But like that elevated level for a week or two on edge, that's going over the range there. So we'll see. Temperature's supposed to drop back down another day or two. So right from the horse's mouth. Craig, thank you for your kind analysis on that.
Right. Yeah. So it's like I was saying, if you talk to people from there, they're used to the heat. So let's just roll down the things that lead me to believe that they are indeed pulling the plug, or you can call it World War III or World War IV, depending on which intellectual circle you talk to. But you got, of course, we're going to use a cause, even though that we are the ones that perpetrated and started the combat activities. we now have reason to punish Iran for the deaths of an increasing number of U.S. military. You got Iran's threatens, and this, I love this headline here: full-scale offensive. No political border will be safe if airstrikes don't stop. So they're saying quit. We're going
Well,
to
if we
get
weren't there, none of this would be happening.
right. And it says we are going to get even closer. Iran makes more chilling Trump death threats. Then you got what people forgetting around, that we have a bunch of operations going elsewhere, not just in the Middle East. Cuba near complete, collapse, if not already, where they continue to have blackouts, struggles. They were a good picture of what may be happening for parts of the rest of the world if things continue. Blackout, famine, totalitarian control of your local government to keep things in order while things are declining. And then you got like Germany raising their terror threat to high and warns attacks could happen at any time, those pesky Russians. And then here's the clock's now ticking for Netanyahu's political future. So he's going to have to act to keep himself in power, not unlike the way that we rename military operations every 59 days so that they don't have to go to Congress and get permission to go to war. You just start a new campaign every 59 days, rename it. Netanyahu's similar to that. He continuously starts operations right when it's time to either go to court for the charges he's facing or, have a re-election. So that leads me to believe that there is an imminent action coming from there. And this is the main one of all. Of course, oil reserve hits lowest level since 1983. Meanwhile, you got Hegseth clearing house at the Pentagon and asking for $37.5 billion more. That they don't want to give him, but he's also been firing people at the Pentagon left and right. You got Saudis reaching a new deal that will make enrichment nuclear fuel, because that's never turned out bad for anyone before. And then here's the risk of the arm race over the U.S.-Saudi nuclear deal. You see all these nuclear symbols popping up all over the place, which of course is going to lead to weapons. It could lead them to nuclear fuel for, generating power. They haven't seemed to need it before, but here you go. Here's a real key right here. Iran strikes on CIA facilities in Gulf, prompts questions about possible Russians' role. They're giving them the targets. It's when analog meets digital. You make a phone call, you tell them the coordinates, then they just aim their old school crap, towards it, and they might get lucky and hit it. So that's a direct escalation. Should travelers give up on summer? We talked about that. They're not going to talk about the wars and all of the other problems. It's just the heat. Don't worry about it. But this gets really interesting over here, though. To take a break from that. You remember back in 2020, I don't know, a lot of people that were watching one of my band channels might have remembered when I made the theory that it might be possible, if you collected enough forever chemicals, i.e. plastics, in your body, which we found that they're in our testicles and our lungs, all, women's reproductive organs. So we're completely saturated in the plastics, but also, but not limited to. Now, remember goldfish, when I was talking about earlier about the millions of satellites that would be covering the sky, dropping off soot of heavy metals and ammonium nitrate and aluminum, something. I don't even remember. However, this new MIT news puts my theory that you could wirelessly use the heavy metals and the plastics that you might find in someone's body to create technology, microscopic wireless electronic devices that travel through the bloodstream and implant in targeted brain regions where they provide electrical stimulus.
You mean message receiving capability from an outside wireless source?
Right.
I'll reframe the English for you there.
And now, and I've shared another paper there on the Civilization Cycle podcast Telegram channel that was about how they could use light to program this exact said technology. Now, remember, I got banned, and a lot of people thought I was probably nutty for saying that, there's enough materials in your body to use magnetic fields and other technologies to create technology in your body without you ever getting an implant. And there ends the peripheral age that we're now in.
Hey, hold on, Hazelnut. Give me a second here. Chestnut. Now I'm going to ask. Hey, so I wanted to say something about the barrel bottoms. So going back to that prior point about coming to operational floor levels on the barrels. So my question is, with a straight face here, what kind of idiot would design a system for a strategic petroleum reserve that runs out when there's still 70 million barrels available that can't get pulled out? And it strands you at 70 million barrels, and you're like, oh, we don't have any left. There's only 70 million left, but we can't do it because the operational floor and the pressures, dude. We got to leave those 70 million barrels stranded that we could use for national defense. Like, what kind of development? They're lying to us. They're absolutely lying. There's no way they're going to leave 70 million barrels stranded because they don't have enough pressure. So come on, man. We're being lied to.
No. It's not that. It's that we used to be able to do that and go to the moon, but the technology no longer exists.
We lost the wooden straws. Were we moved to paper straws to get the rest of that out? Because plastic's too bad for the environment. Maybe we could get a cellulose straw program online so we can get those 70 million barrels out.
Right. I don't know, but we're about to, according to their own mouth, massive attack greater than anything before on Iran. Now, these are all things leading me to, we might just drop a nuke on it.
Great music, by the way.
Iran war latest. U.S. carries out more strikes. Trump threatens Iran Houthis with major punishment. We're just telling everybody, we're really going to go all out here. And, it's so bad. Dubai's offering people money to come over and lure your friends to come hang out over here in the war zone. It's okay. Don't worry about those drones.
Hey, wait a second. Now, Dubai government, this is a direct message to you. If Ransom and I broadcast live on Thursday nights, can you put us up 2 weeks in a hotel? Ransom and I, and you get us our tickets out there, and we'll come over and fly over, and we'll do our show from Dubai.
Not me, man. I've said too many things.
Well, I will, and Ransom will be on the other side.
I've said too many things publicly on the internet about certain people's faiths and my problems with it. So you'll never catch me going to any country run by a religion. Ever. And I mean, a communist religion.
Forget it. I don't want to come either now.
And the same with China, man. I'm sorry. I've said too much against their religion. I'll never go there.
Me too. I'm kind of on the bad side from when I was living and working there with my photos, sending them out to the press. Oops. How dare you photograph protests, dude? You don't know what the country's about, you foreigner. Get out.
And why aren't the lefties losing their minds, man? This is like the Exxon Valdez times a million here. We're just blowing up tankers, dropping them to the bottom of the ocean. We're
love the smoke. The smoke is awesome in the atmosphere, dude. Gotta love it.
Breathing that asbestos over there in Iran. I bet they're saying that too, just like that movie. I love the smell of burning asbestos in the morning.
CO2.
And we're about to drop. We're about to drop those little boots on the ground. Everybody's waiting for it. That's what's happening. Even though we've been saying, "Hey, we're never gonna do that. We're never gonna do that." We're gonna do that. At least on the islands. That's where some heavy combat's gonna go. And you remember, the late great Lindsey Graham talking about, don't worry about it. Our Marines are, they're tough. Those devil dogs will take it. We took care of Jima. We lost 10,000 people taking that island.
I can find out for you. Yeah, back to that other previous article you had with the smoke rising. I mean, do they give numbers on how much, how many things have been destroyed that are smoldering ruins and oil seas, and how much, burning?
What's this? Oil pipelines bypassing the Strait of Hormuz. There's that thing again. And if you hadn't noticed, if I don't get in trouble, our greater ally map just so happens to cover all this area where these new pipelines are going to be. If you didn't notice that.
No, I didn't notice that.
Well, just
only the
look
big
at
red
it.
thing going across the middle of it.
There's the border of it, I believe. Right here is the Greater Israel Project. Right here is this whole area right here.
Okay, I got some Iwo Jima stats for you here. 7,000 Americans were killed, 26,000 wounded. That doesn't include other allied forces. That's strictly Americans.
And then here's the last little piece that I know they're going to pop this on every talking head show that supports the war, is that but Iran is rebuilding fast. They're in 2 weeks They're going to be
You got
able to
another
blow
Duke in
us
2
up.
weeks, dude. Underground, groundhogs are building fast.
And look at the this is the crowbar that we're using on them. You got the carrot, the stick, and the crowbar. And they want these Abraham Accords to reach out and every country in the Middle East to join that. And part of that, obviously, is to normalize relations with Israel, who weirdly has no interest in normalizing relations with the other people that would be involved. So that's why I think they will escalate into the Samson option, as they call it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering why, again, all this is, I'm looking at it as a full distraction. So if you just take a close look in your lives back home, in the US, I mean, everything's getting more expensive. Insurance prices are going up. The price of anything you buy, it doesn't matter. Used cars are still ridiculously expensive. Food's going up to like people complaining all over the internet that food's too expensive. They can't go out and do anything. Movie tickets are too expensive. I mean, anywhere they go, restaurants or amusement parks, you got to have like a second loan to be able to take your family out to do all this stuff. So if you're looking at that as a distractive thing, and like, what would you do during times of war, like they always do in every Hollywood movie you've ever seen? They cause a distraction somewhere, a big one, so everybody looks that way while they're doing their thing over here.
Right.
So is what we're seeing with all this inflation and talk of war and everything really just an excuse to buy more time, keep people distracted as the reset for the full global financial system unfolds, along with this surveillance apparatus that's put in place too because of declining food production and declining oil or energy access? Because both those two are tied together. Like, if this really rolls even a fraction of what you're talking, the food's going to be far less available and the energy is going to be far less available, just on a easy look at it. So, the law of supply and demand, at $8 gasoline or $10 gasoline in America, we don't have a functional economy anymore. At that point, then what? I mean, people are going to be out of work, they're going to be protesting, they're going to be all over the streets. We don't have a universal basic income program set up to pay everybody to stay home and not riot. So what are the options for the American government at that point? Or state governments where they're marching on state capitals? What happened in the 60s, they just pull out, shoot on order or shoot on site orders, got to get them away from the politicians in the seats of power. Like, we're coming into a very volatile period here. Food not available, energy extremely scarce, and that would even cause more unemployment, which would be sucked up by the AI movement. So, I mean, all these distractive event things are happening. Now, if you take all that as a subset, that's the distraction. What's going on behind that they're implementing during that distraction? That's the question. Everything you're seeing on the front here is on the table, the distraction. You're actually seeing the game being played out. But where the real movement is under the table where you're not seeing it. So what's happening down there? Alien invasion? I don't know. Well, seems like our planet's being terraformed tremendously. And we're in this like ramping up of terraforming. And that's no joke when I say that. You can't tell me we're altering the upper atmosphere with so many satellites and debris, the lower atmosphere with so much pollution and everything, stripping the forests, which everybody has saved the trees and got to save. And then we're putting up all the data centers. Like, the amount of things that we're building out for this alien, like electronic AI presence is staggering. And nobody is complaining about it that were the same ones that were complaining 15 years ago about deforestation for McDonald's hamburgers. Now, I don't see anybody out there complaining about the AI deforestation going on. Something else is at play here. Our planet is being taken over, literally invaded, slowly, to the point where we're not seeing it. But at one point, we're just going to wake up and there'll be a hostile alien force literally in front of us.
Well, I was thinking about this, at least for in America, you're talking about riots and people upset. I really don't think that'll happen much. It'll be the same old actors that always do those kind of things. Leftist, socialist, the Democrat socialist. People, basically, a lot of people that don't have jobs are going to be out there doing that. So as far as people with money, they can absorb $8 a gallon in gasoline for quite some time. They might have to rearrange their life. I don't know, get rid of some entertainment things, cut some streaming, this, that, and the other thing. We buy a lot of disposable income items and wasted money. There's no doubt that Americans live like that. They live lush, they live comfortable. You might want to turn down that air conditioning I was so fondly talking about earlier. All kinds of things. However, in the long term, I know that these people are masters of incrementalism. So I'm not expecting no single big trigger that where I wake up, although those seem to happen every so often, a smaller ones, but a giant one, I'm not really expecting that. I'm expecting the same steamrolling, inevitable incrementalism that I've learned to expect from these people from the beginning. And, that's what they're going to do. And the reason I was showing that map is because I think that map is what will, I don't know where it went.
Well, I turned it off because I was showing up this same thing about corn prices in the same exact regions where you're talking. So you got people taking out 20 million long bets on corn going up in price. Like, people don't do that unless they know something, What was that old Trading Places? Remember that old movie? Like what they did with the orange crop? Well, the same thing. People don't put that type of money out unless they understand that there's a possibility or a good percentage. Their risk analysis is saying, hey, probably going to be going up. If you look at the Black Sea, Kazakhstan stopped all the pipeline loads going into the Black Sea. No oil coming from Kazakhstan. They were a major producer too. So the Black Sea export route is totally cut off now. There's nothing really coming from Russia. Kazakhstan just shut it off. All the wheat and the crops being grown in Ukraine's offline. We got the fertilizer disruptions down out of the Strait of Hormuz. And Bab el-Mandeb, down there, that's all the Red Sea corridor coming out. But and then you can see soy is starting to trend back up again. Now, usually when they're coming to this type of season right now, and they're doing the crop tours, so we're getting some analysis that obviously things are bad in the fields or else these prices wouldn't be going back up. But it's not going to take that long until we're, $10, $12 beans or something. Looks like it's corn. Spot index. Oh, it's just a pure ag index, but you're looking at $12 bean or something. But this is going to come up near the all-time highs here really shortly, because once we get to them actually harvesting and we get it's really coming into the sheds, then it's going to be something very dangerous that's going to approach our planet here in terms of how our society is going to start to break apart. Because once these rising food costs go into the actual stratosphere and the news media starts talking about the shortages, the famines that are inbound, that's not going to sit well, and everybody's going to panic buy. And that's just going to drive the prices. Then we're going to have to get the digital rationing cards and all that bullshit. So that's going to be the order of it going out as we come into the end of the summer. So I would highly encourage you to prepare with your families. Buy in bulk, learn how to cook. I cook from scratch. Ransom cooks from scratch. We need to learn how to grandma cook again, like go back to your grandparents, cook in the kitchen from scratch. Your days of buying stuff in a box are kind of over. This is going to hit like out of the blue, where suddenly you're just going to wake up and they're going to go famine somewhere on a front page headline. You'll be like, how is that possible? And then they'll explain it. Oh, by the way, the wheat harvest is down 30% this year. Oh, wait, it's actually 40% down because we didn't add in the area we thought was going to keep production steady, not decline. But hey, it came in with a heat dome. So what are we going to do? And then the runs on the pricing are going to start. And if you think your food's expensive now, or others that are complaining across the net that think it's expensive, you got a couple of options. I would start with learning how to grow your food. Put your summer crop in now. And then as we get it trend over into like autumn, there's a whole bunch of autumn crops you can grow. And then you can learn how to extend your growing season by putting, plastic cover over grow cover over your grow. Extend that out. If you need to learn these things immediately, if you're not familiar with any of those terms I just said.
Right.
So, and then if we got a full-on blown war and you're talking about exchanging nukes, people are going to literally think it's the end of the world, because you're going to have the famines, you're going to have the energy crisis, you're going to have nuclear weapons dropped. And the way they could frame this in the media, it literally is the apocalypse, like the famine horse running out of the stables. You know what I mean? The war horse already gone. It's going to be one of those things. They can build it up. They've been building this up, the psychology of it. So how willing are you going to be to fight back for something if your daily existence is just to stay alive with your family and have some sort of comfort around you? You sure as hell not going to be protesting data centers. You're just going to be like, I don't care what happens. I need to keep my families fed. I need to keep my house secure. I need to make sure I got a job so I can keep the roof over my head without the bank yanking out my note. Whatever goes on outside that or that periphery of me, I just don't care. We'll pick up the pieces later and I'll deal with it because I just need to keep this tight here. And that's the way a lot of people are going to progress with the situation. And I don't blame them one bit because you're what's within your 6 foot span here, your 6 foot radius is what you need to take care of first. Right. They're banking on that, your inaction because of the situations that are affecting you so greatly around you. How much did they get away with during the Great Depression? Tremendous amounts. And they came out with the gold confiscation shortly thereafter that. People were still barely picking up the pieces of Great Depression, whatever, trying to get their lives back together. Okay, well, where you go? Here's my goal. Okay, don't arrest me. Shit, I already, just survived the Depression. Like, there are going to be so many weird laws passed during this time. And, I would say one last thing here. Again, I could not believe that they came out with the U.S. House to vote on banning Congress from insider trading, and 197 voted against that. Right. Against it. Like that should be not even a no-brainer. It shouldn't even be a thing. If you're caught insider trading in a government, you should be arrested and removed from office like immediately. That should be the law. Not have to vote on can't we do it. Everybody's doing it, and then if they have to vote that they can't do it, should be the opposite. You come into office, if you're caught insider trading, you go to prison and you're removed from office. That should have been the law that we have to vote against and to ban.
You notice they didn't give the people the option to vote whether or not that they could insider trade or not. That's a vote that they give themselves.
Yes.
Can
I vote myself out of prison if I'm insider trading?
No. Ask Martha Stewart. No.
No, come on, Martha.
Madoff.
You get to share some recipes in prison, girl.
Right. So, kind of you asked me about a trigger, and I really do think that once you see on the news that Israel now has a combat operation involving Turkish forces right around that area where these pipelines are going out, I would say that that's the trigger that we were talking about. And I wanted to point this thing out here. We were talking about outliers, right?
Can you bring up a Turkey map too? Like when you're at it, you got a Turkey map on your screen. You bring up, well, let me find one. I'll find a cool map.
If you look in the background, we were talking about outliers and all the automotive stuff and the grid and the tracking and the tracing. If you notice, when you're looking over there in Iran, what do you see? You see a bunch of old 70s cars. None of it has tracking and tracing. None of it. There's no flock cameras going on over there, except for whatever cameras the IRCG set up in the mullahs, but they don't have all of that other stuff that the Western world wants to put in there. And one more last thought that I had here. Let me turn this off.
No, they don't. And that's the same with a lot of these nations that are, like you say, outliers. If you go there, Cuba, they still have an enormous amount of older cars. And I'm not talking about Cuba, but
Venezuela.
Yeah, and places like Central
Colombia.
Asia too, man. I'm not even kidding. You go there, there's all kind of stuff from the 70s still running around in Central Asia.
The entire, country of Africa. I mean,
most
of Africa. Yeah. Excuse me, not a country. Sounded like one of those guys off the street. No, I just wanted to put one more point when you were
name a letter
talking about the AI and the software, just kind of smoothly inching its way into everyone's life. If there really was an extraterrestrial artificial intelligence they sent here, I don't think that anyone would recognize it. It would appear to be something very basic, and it would grow with our internet and with our understanding of an AI, and you wouldn't even be able to tell that became the standard model in a few years. There would be no way for you as a human to identify that it's alien tech you're integrating with over human created tech.
Over incrementalism, because think how we got incrementally sold the smartphone.
Right. The droid that goes with you everywhere. But now, like I said, they can just make one of those inside of you. Even if you want to be off grid, we can tag you still.
Let me bring up the map a little larger here. I'm going to smack that. All right. So there's our Turkey map. So we got Cyprus on the bottom there, the Cyprus. But you notice all, Constantinople itself, the connector between, and that whole, Bosphorus Strait coming out of there through the Black Sea. We got Russian oil production offline and the refinery capacities offline. So if I was an alien invasion force, I would start to go after the refineries, which means diesel fuel, which means no food, which means the host species of the planet starves or weakens themselves. Right? That's what sieges were all about, is to take away your calorific input so you couldn't fight back. By the time the armies stormed the gates, you
Salt
couldn't
the
lift
earth.
yourself off the ground. You were so malnourished. All right, so we take away all the Russian refining capacity, which has now put a huge dent into global diesel production and reserves. I mean, we're out of it, like pretty much what we're producing is what we're using. There's really no spare capacity for diesel. So I'm saying it's going to get really expensive at harvest season for our farmers. And then we got the whole grain baskets going offline over there. Bulgaria is coming on with some good production. They're one of the only regions across Europe that did well. You know, that heat dome that wrecked almost all the crops from Germany to France, all the way, everything in between. Bulgaria and Romania kind of were on the very edge. And maybe it's because they had more microclimate along the Black Sea there. Not sure. But those two countries out of Europe have some of the best crop production of the year compared to more far west, where everything's just, they're looking at massive losses. I don't think they're really telling you the full scope of how much that heat damaged the beginning, right when they were coming out of the ground, those, little sprouts when they're starting to mature off. They got a heat dome and everything was just greatly damaged in that first, 2 weeks. And then we got the second. Now we're into the third heat dome. So crops are not doing well in Asia, or excuse me, in Europe or Asia either, or United States. But where do you see the pivot point is? So we know coming out of Syria, there's supposed to be a pipeline coming out of there as well.
Yeah, that would be popping out like that. You see those two red lines right there. That's right about where they're at.
Yeah, maybe those are pipelines. I am not sure.
But you can see why I said Cyprus. And if you look, you back that map out, you see the Soviet Union, you see the Middle East, you see Europe. That is the strategic center of any world war that we're going to have. It'll start here and it'll spread all the way down that band, all the way over to Taiwan.
Yeah, because Kazan Island, remember the what was her name? The girl was that, well, we walked with bare feet all the way to the top and we loved it and we want to buy the island. Kazan Island.
Right. And you remember just a few years ago that this whole area
What was her
was
name? Married to Jared Kushner, I believe. I forget her name.
That's right. But you remember a few years ago, around 2011, all of the migrant hordes were vandalizing and destroying stuff in Turkey, and then they moved into Greece and Bulgaria and made their way west to now a completely occupied Europe. So if you're going to have any major conflict in the Middle East, you know that things will necessarily shatter belt all across Europe. Europe's done. Right now, they're nothing more than a playing piece for the other powers to decide who gets to run, rule, and make money off of.
Yeah, because another really important strategic choke point there is in Albania. If you go right down to where our black box is, where Ransom's Head is there, that covers up the Kazan Island, which was the whole big thing that Trump wanted to buy, and they wanted to do a resort for like 1.2 billion, and then there were so many protests. They call it the Flamingo Revolution because they started bulldozing wetlands and protected areas to put in a private pier and port and yacht club for the people who were going to stay in Kazan Island. So the locals are like, we're not having it. The president came under corruption investigation and got kicked out of power. So that deal is off the table for the moment. But it's all thing. They keep probing, and eventually one day they're going to get their deal, but not today. But that's whoever controls the Adriatic. Look how important of a sea lane that is as well.
Right. Well, you remember we started working on that during Bill Clinton. We started working on that area during Bill Clinton with the same tactic. We shoved migrants from Middle Eastern countries and pushed them. And then you started having ethnic cleansing going both directions. You remember we were Milosevic and all of that stuff. So you have stuff from Bosnia and
Yugoslavia.
Yeah, all of
every
that
country
whole
you see
area.
here was former Yugoslavia, by the way.
Right. It's the same playbook. They just do it. And see, you could tell just from that. Think about all the areas that we softened, say from 1991 to 2000, and then from 2000 to 2011, and then to now. It's just like that Gates thing. To ignore the fact that there's a neocon plan moving out, and to deny that there's a greater Israel project, and to deny that there's a coalition of Islamic states merging, and to deny that everyone, all of the major powers, are gathering their resources, and that the whole world is set up for giant famines for decades to come. It's just there's no real way around it. The real question is who are going to be the biggest groups to suffer through it? And I don't think it will be the US. Yeah, we may have, poverty issues, but keep in mind that the poverty level in the United States is above the level of the standard of living for most of the rest of the world.
We can't judge it because you're in the same place, as I've been told. No, you can just go move with your minimal money to another country and see how much it'll buy you. $1,000 plane ticket. If you think you're struggling and you're getting government assistance, or you're only making this much or whatever, you go fly to a different country and then go use your money there. You'll be blown away on what you can buy, or medical costs, or cost of living in general. But here's one at the bottom. Thanks for the comments over here. Haven't seen a single honeybee or bumblebee in months, and I planted tons of flowers for them. Saw one butterfly. There you go. That is absolutely the quintessential. I think it was Einstein that said, when the bees go, humanity has 7 years.
Well, lucky those people in Texas got 35 million new bees whenever that tractor trailer overturned with them. There's lots of bees. Around here, there's plenty of bees. There's ground bees, honeybees, wasps, lots and lots of wasps, plenty of butterflies. So I'm not seeing that kind of thing here. However, I don't use poisons. I use no poisons. I haven't for probably since I own this property. Not a single herbicide, pesticide, insecticide, nothing. And I have little pouches that I've been working on for years now that are very biodiverse, and the bugs love them. There's ladybugs, praying mantises, whole 9 yards, just in little pockets that I've created in completely dead, barren desert sand.
And you got to be aware of your own animals too. This is real interesting here. The cat waited until they were all 5 inches tall and then chewed them all off. Yeah, no kidding. Like chickens, ducks, geese, sheep, anything, goats. Goats are dangerous. You could grow an entire year's crop and one animal get loose and it'll eat everything you've grown for the whole year and you'll starve, Yeah. So protecting your crops is going to be as important as protecting your family, protecting your finances during these changes, and protecting your mind and your spirit as well. We try to talk about this every week. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Civilization Cycle podcast every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. We try to talk about these issues to try and allow you and myself too to work through this to see how can we keep our families safe? The same things I talk about and Ransom talk about on the show, the same thing and I'm sure you have the same questions. It's just great to have a conversation. So then this is out publicly so people other can join in on the conversation. You can share this with somebody else, start the conversation. Hey, you thinking the same thing? I don't know. We need to do this. When you want to work on a garden together? A lot of solutions are coming out. Like I've worked on gardens with people before too. Like we got our fruit orchards massive right now. So having people come over and pick fruit, that's always going to be a win in the future. Hey, somebody got extra veg, somebody got extra whatever, and they, bring it by and share it out. That is going to be the future. Our past is the future. That's the whole thing. Is our crystal ball is a history book in the past on how we live. Because if things collapse in this AI era, we're going to have to go back to the 1860s for a minute until it does something and comes back. But by that time, the grid should be pretty total and complete. But until next week, keep the dream alive.